It all began with a lawn gyroplane, folding plastic one, the type you'd snag for $20 at any big box store without a second thought. I'd just moved into the neighborhood, a cul-de-sac that radiated suburban bliss, perfectly trimmed hedges, American flags fluttering on every porch, and mailboxes standing straight as soldiers. It was the kind of place where folks waved without bothering to learn your name, and HOA flyers showed up in your mailbox faster than takeout. I wasn't out to cause trouble. All I wanted was a peaceful Saturday afternoon, a cold drink, a paperback, and a spot in the sun. So I set out 2 brand new chairs, bright blue and a little loud, but undeniably cozy, right in front of my porch. That was it. No gaudy yard art. No blaring music, just me and the faint buzz of cicadas. Then came Linda. I didn't know her name at first, but I knew her type. Oversized sunglasses, a workout outfit that screamed, "I'm either late for Pilates or about to complain about it," and a clipboard gripped like it was her lifeline. She strode up to my property line, squinted at my chairs like they personally offended her, and declared in a voice sharp enough to cut glass, "Those aren't regulation." I blinked. "Regulation chairs?" I asked, half expecting a punchline. She didn't crack a smile. Instead, she whipped out a laminated HOA rule sheet, highlighted, scribbled on, and hole-punched with precision. "Front-facing yard furniture must align with community aesthetic standards," she recited, like a lawyer in a courtroom. "No neon, no bright colors, no wear, and only earth tones allowed." I glanced at my chair's VY brand, sure, comfortable, absolutely, but offensive only to someone obsessed with beige. "They're temporary," I said, trying to keep the peace. "I just moved in and haven't unpacked my patio set yet." She narrowed her eyes. "Intentions don't excuse impact," she snapped, then spun around and marched off, muttering about precedents. I figured that was the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. 20 minutes later, as I poured another drink and tried to forget I'd just met the neighborhood's self-proclaimed enforcer, I heard sirens. Just one patrol car, lights flashing lazily, no rush. The officer stepped out, casual but clearly unimpressed, glanced at his notepad, then at my chairs. "Sir, we got a call about a potential obstruction and safety hazard," he said. I stared. "You're joking." He wasn't. Linda stood across the street, arms crossed, nodding like she'd caught me red-handed with a felony instead of furniture. "She says they're too close to the sidewalk," the officer continued, "could block pedestrian traffic." I pointed to the wide, clear path between my porch and the sidewalk. "Unless someone's sprinting blindfolded, I think we're fine." He shrugged, half apologetic. "Look, I'm not citing you, but maybe slide them back a foot or two?" Linda was already on her phone, probably calling the HOA Presidente or the FBI. "No violation?" I asked. He shook his head. "Just a neighbor thing, nothing enforceable." That's when it clicked. I smiled, nodded, and said, "No problem, officer, I'll handle it." What I didn't say, what no one in this postcard-perfect suburb knew, was that those chairs were about to spark the biggest HOA drama this town had ever seen. Linda thought she was dealing with some clueless newbie. She had no idea who she just crossed. I wasn't just a random guy with a MOVYing truck. I had a badge of my own. One that didn't mess around with chair placement but with the rules she worshipped. When I showed it later, the silence was sweeter than VY Tory. Linda didn't quit, though she doubled down. 2 days later, the flyer started. Glossy, over the top, printed in a font that screamed, "I just found Microsoft Word," they read, "Is your neighbor ruining our community?" Above a blurry photo of my blue chair, zoomed in until it looked like a pixelated crime scene. Bullet points followed: non-regulation furniture, trip hazard, and my favorite, possible criminal negligence in seating. She stuffed them in every mailbox like a suburban Paul Revere. Then came the gawkers, people slowing down to stare at my chairs like they were toxic waste. One snapped pics from their SUV. Another knocked on my door to ask, "Is it true you didn't get HOA approval for those?" I grinned. "Got a permit to ask that?" The real showdown hit that Saturday morning. I stepped outside, coffee in hand, slippers on, and there was Linda, flanked by 2 women in matching polos and oversized sunglasses, clipboards at the ready. They looked like a backup crew for a homeowners association talent show. "We're here for a VY Sewell compliance audit," Linda announced, dead serious. I stared. "A what?" One of her sidekicks, a woman named Janet with a scowl that could curdle milk, piped up. "We're the HOA Aesthetic Re-VY EW Committee." "That's not a real thing," I said, sipping my coffee. "Not legally anyway." Linda brushed it off. "We're forming an emergency subcommittee. Community morale's at stake." Because of chairs? I asked. Because of chaos, she shot back. If you won't comply, we'll document your violations. I laughed. Can't help it. Linda, offended, stepped onto my lawn with a tape measure, her posse scribbling notes like they were prepping for a Supreme Court case. That's trespassing, I said, calm but firm. You're on my property. It's a VY Sewell audit, she smirked. HOA bylaws allow it. I'm not in the HOA, I cut in, and neither are these chairs. She froze just for a second, then rallied. We'll escalate this warnings, notices. Can't wait, I said, turning back inside, letting the screen door slam shut. But I knew she wouldn't stop. That night, my motion camera pinged at midnight. The feed showed Linda in gardening gloves and a hoodie, sneaking up with a tape measure and her phone. She nudged one chair closer to the sidewalk, snapped a photo, then darted off like a petty bandit. At 12:13 a.m., she called 911 from my lawn. The next morning, the same officer showed up, looking exhausted. Another call about obstructive furniture, he said. Now it's encroaching on public access. I pulled up the footage. Linda caught in the act. He sighed. She did this. She did, I said. Want the clip? Please, he muttered. Then he paused. Why haven't you filed a complaint? I smiled. I'm building something bigger. The second 911 call came on a Sunday, a perfect day ruined by Linda waving down two cops like a frantic air traffic controller. I stepped out mid-rib seasoning to hear her rant about non-compliant furniture obstructing public safety. One officer approached. She cited Municipal Code 4.160.3 improper placement of fixtures in community zones. I laughed, not out of disrespect, but because I knew better. Time to end it. I pulled out my wallet, flipped it open, and showed my ID. City of Fairview YEW Code Compliance DVY Shaun, Senior Inspector. The air shifted. The cops blinked. Linda's tirade died mid-sentence. I stepped forward. That code doesn't apply to private property beyond 15 feet from the curb unless it blocks emergency access. These chairs are 7 feet from the sidewalk, fully compliant. Want the full clause? The officer shut his notepad. Not necessary, sir. Linda sputtered. You're not allowed to. To what? I interrupted. Know the law? Enforce it? Spot when it's being twisted. The cops turned to her. Ma'am, step back. Multiple false calls could mean harassment charges. She retreated, mumbling about sovereignty, but her act was falling apart. File a complaint? An officer asked me. Not yet, I said. I'll submit a report to the city, though. She should brush up on real codes before inventing them. They left, and Linda stormed off, Leah VYing her measuring stick behind. I tossed it onto my porch like a prize. Neighbors peeked out, smirking. Linda's reign built on bluff and bluster cracked that day. But I wasn't done. I logged into the city database and dug into her history. 3 months back, she'd filed to create an aesthetic enforcement committee under an HOA that hadn't been legal for 2 years. No charter, no board, nothing. Every flyer, every audit, every Venmo demand was a sham. I found dozens of fake complaints, mailbox heights, holiday lights, wind chimes, all signed Linda M., Vice Chair of Community Image, a title she'd made up. I filed a review AW with the city, attaching her flyers, trespassing footage, and forged citations. Within days, an investigation launched. The city audited the defunct HOA, sent letters voiding all unofficial citations, and issued Linda a cease and desist order. Her neighbors, once silenced, erupted online stories of her bullying over rose bushes, porch lights, even bird baths. A town hall followed in my driveway, where a city rep dismantled her fake authority. Linda tried to interrupt, but when impersonating an officer is a misdemeanor, hit the air, she slinked away. Her doula, $8,200 in community funds, came to light pocketed for personal use. Fraud charges loomed. I didn't stop there. I launched Lawn Chair Chronicles, selling cheeky merch, certified chair rebel tees, mugs bragging my chair survived 911, and tiny blue chair keychains. It went viral. Linda sent me a broken clipboard and a note. You think this is over? My dog chewed it up. She settled her fines, sold her house, and faded away. The HOA dissolved for good, and we threw a Freedom Fest, block part flamingo races, loud music, and my blue chairs front and center. Linda's tyranny was dead, and in its place we got something real, a neighborhood that fought back with truth, humor, and a little plastic rebellion,